When I was a kid, the library was practically my second home. After school, my mom would always take us to the library so she could get some work done, and she would let my brother and I fend for ourselves for a while. It would be there that I would spend countless hours jumping over fences in the Barbie riding club, smashing home runs with my boy Pablo Sanchez, and perusing the shelves for the latest installments of the Magic Treehouse. I wonder if Jack and Annie have tried to stop January 6th yet. The real life-changing moment, though, was one fateful evening where I discovered the magic of manga. There on a twirly shelf were stacks and stacks of shoujo beat, Tokyo Pop, and Del Rey titles, all waiting to be consumed voraciously by little ol' me because I would request tens of manga and take them all out at the same time, read them all in one sitting on a weekend, and then come back and get the rest of my stack because I was requesting so much manga I couldn't even rent all of it at once. The only problem though is that when you grow up, you kind of start having less time for your hobbies you enjoy. High school had me juggling 3 different sports teams I was on, managing all of my friendships, wooing my now current husband, and also wanting to be a photographer. I had increasingly less time towards my junior and senior years to read manga and go to the library. And eventually, after incurring enough library debt and having no money to actually be able to pay it off, I had to stop going entirely. This basically led to me having never gone back to the library in my adult years either. This despite me being a huge advocate for these spaces. Public access to utilities and books are a necessity for everyone, and the attacks on libraries in this country have been absolutely abysmal to watch over the past few years. Which is why it was a bit hypocritical of me to never have had a library card since my childhood. If I was going to support these institutions, I needed to put my support where my mouth was. So after hopping a few barriers that were keeping me from having gotten a library card in the first place, I am now officially a card-carrying library user. That also means I have once again returned to my roots and began to voraciously read dozens of manga. Seriously, I cannot believe I almost forgot how much joy the library brings me. I was already reading as much as I could get my hands on beforehand, but with endless titles I can request and try out, I have basically tripled the amount of manga that I've been reading. Shonen Jump titles I didn't want to buy, expensive hardcovers I couldn't afford, long-running titles, and so much more. Due to the fact that I have been reading so many new manga because I finally got a library card, I wanted to take the opportunity to shout out these public institutions while also showing you guys the 18 manga that I've read from my least favorite to my most favorite. Some of these I read in the physical copies, others I was able to request through my Libby app. For those who don't know, that's an online collection of ebooks that the library can rent out to you. And this all opened me up to a plethora of new titles. So for those who have been dragging their feet and do not have a library card still, this one is for you guys. Don't be like the me a year ago. Be like the me now. The one with the ability to walk right out of that door and get free access to all the manga that I can read.
Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card. Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card.
Oh shit!
Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card. Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card.
Okay, well, we're gonna start with my least favorite of the manga in this ranking. Unfortunately, we are going to be starting with Phantom Busters, a new Shonen Jump title in the quintessential exorcist action comedy genre. I know the series has a lot of shooters, and especially when it comes to Fujos, because the author herself is a Fujo. She has previously made a bunch of BL titles and doujinshi work, so she's a hardcore fan. However, I just haven't really found myself interested in this series even after I've read 2 volumes of it so far. Phantom Busters does share a lot of DNA with a title like Naruto, in that the main character is this bombastic, over-the-top, crude goofball who has a dark family past. While I do find the art interesting, I think it's very dynamic, and there are a couple characters I like, the series just has this kind of juvenile humor that doesn't really attract me or make me think it's funny. Barfing, farting, picking your nose, you name it. That kind of like teen adolescent boy humor. There is a semblance of a story arc that seems like it's going to be interesting by the end of like volume 2. It gets into it a little bit in volume 1 as well, but the tone of the writing, it's just not landing for my typical sensibilities. That is the beauty of the library though. I usually would have dropped a manga like this because I couldn't afford to keep up with something I don't find myself super into, but I can read it for free, so I'm giving this one at least until volume 4 still before I drop it. Phantom Busters might be the lowest on this list, but this next title I think is tied for my lack of interest as well. The Case Files of Jeweler Richard is a josei manga adaptation of a slice of life mystery light novel series. I have now read 5 out of the 6 volumes available in English at the moment, and with each volume I was just having to push myself to even continue reading it. This manga was just unfortunately a slog to get through, with neither the mysteries being that interesting to me, nor the characters very compelling. Each chapter or volume kind of has this new jewel-centered mystery that the reader doesn't even get a chance to really solve on their own. Rather, it just wants you to listen to the main character Richard monologue about jewels, and it's really only tangentially relevant to the mystery at hand. The only reason that this manga is slightly higher than Phantom Busters is just because there is some interesting queer rep in this one. However, I am dropping this series because I can't keep forcing myself to read it when I have no interest in anything that is happening. The writing is just so blunt and matter of fact, and I do not see that getting any better. For this next one though, we are jumping a pretty considerable gap in my enjoyment. And that is the 1-volume title called Pink by Kyoko Okazaki. This is a dramedy title that I'm pretty sure is out of print, so it was really nice to see that my library had it. It's a story about capitalism, consumerism, the need for satisfaction, and apathy. Since this one was only 1 volume, I think I really enjoyed how it was a very open and closed thematic message that was very solid in its execution. It didn't feel like the chapters were trying to pad length to make this into a full volume, and every new plot development served some sort of narrative for the characters and their development. Now, the reason it's so low on my list though is, first of all, because I read a lot of good manga, okay? But personally, I just think that it relied a lot on shock value in its imagery to kind of like make the reader feel uncomfortable. I'm no prude, but I didn't necessarily need the degrading sexual encounters spelled out for me to understand what Okazaki was trying to say about it. Also, while it didn't dampen the overall story, I was very meh on the ending with the guy. And honestly, I probably could have done without his existence in the narrative entirely. He just kind of felt like an afterthought that I didn't really think contributed anything. Overall though, pretty solid read from Kyoko Okazaki. This is my 3rd series I have read from her now. This one is not my favorite. I'm gonna put it probably at number 2. It's pretty below Helter Skelter though, which is still my absolute favorite from her. Now, okay, so hear me out, guys. It's gonna seem crazy that this one is this low on the list. I just started reading Boys Run the Riot a couple weeks ago, and this is a coming-of-age drama about a trans boy who is struggling with his queerness. I was expecting to absolutely love this one. Everyone loves this series, and honestly, I can understand why, but for me, this one has just kind of been like a nice, serviceable read during Pride Month. I think since the author himself is a trans man, the discussion of transness and the uncomfortable aspects of not feeling like yourself are done very sincerely. As I'm under the same umbrella of gender identity as Rio too, I can definitely feel for him whenever he does not get identified in the way he feels comfortable with. So, None of that is my issue. I just want to make that clear. My issue with the series is, once again, how juvenile the writing can be. Problems are solved in ways that I just think are kind of unrealistic for a high schooler to act. Lines will have some very cheesy power of friendship conclusion to them that I would expect more in an action story than a series about real people. And in volume 2, a guy solves an argument by jumping up on a table and ripping a fart in this dude's face to a businessman. There's just so much in this manga that has me rolling my eyes, and it really shouldn't be making me do that. Especially when I just want to read about this kid's story and his dreams and how he wants to become a fashion label creator. I believe there is a sequel of this manga coming out, so I think it's really important that we are getting a trans man's perspective, because that is the reason why I can understand why a lot of people like this series. There's not too many about trans men out there in manga. It just kind of sucks because I'm clearly not the target audience for this style of writing. Never let someone tell you that I don't read shonen though, because this next title that I started from my library is Assassination Classroom. I'd been wanting to check out this series for a while because the premise of it sounded very intriguing to me. Also, it's quite often on banned book lists. Luckily, my library has all of this series on the Libby app, so I've been slowly working my way through the series. Currently, I'm on volume 6 of this action comedy about a bunch of high school students who have to try and assassinate their alien teacher, who is actually kind of good at being a teacher. That is what makes the manga thrive though. It perfectly blends more action-packed elements that a Shonen Jump reader would enjoy, with a great message of camaraderie and individuality that a young adolescent needs to hear about. Each character gets a chance to shine with their own talents throughout the series. Each chapter kind of focuses on different students. It's just a very good read, and I really like what it's trying to say. Where this manga does fall short though is in the typical shonen sex jokes and mild sexism that kind of seeps in through the extra chapters. There's one woman teacher who is never shown to be a competent assassin, at least in the volumes that I've read so far, and it always falls back on her just having big boobs and then the alien teacher fawning all over them. Also, in like all of the little side extra panels, I can't help but notice that every girl is shown to be less mentally or physically capable than all the boys in the class. This doesn't take over the manga, it's just something I noticed while I'm reading it. So it's not like my enjoyment is completely ruined, it's just not fun to read about. So I'm just like mildly put off from saying this one is a very good series for kids. Another series I have a few qualms with, but overall I do enjoy, is Princess Jellyfish. I watched the anime for this one way back in college and maybe read like one volume with it. However, I have never read the whole thing. I don't know if I really remember too much of the anime even. So I've been wanting to revisit this josei comedy series since people still love this manga and the anime. I wanted to see why it is still such a hyped up series to this day. To start with the positives, I do really like the two main leads, Tsukimi and Kuranosuke. Both of them are stubborn in their own ways, but when they put their heads together, they become a dream team. Tsukimi being an adorable, sweet, passionate girl makes it so easy to see why Kuranosuke would fall for her very quickly, and also become very possessive of her too. While I do wish Kuranosuke had more of a arc about exploring gender, I do still kind of like that he's just a guy and really enjoys feminine things. This kind of helps destigmatize femininity and girlishness as less than, but it was still nice to have the gender aspect. It's just not there. Most of my qualms from this series come from all of these side characters though. I basically cannot stand when most of them show up to any sort of scene in this manga. I almost kind of wish it was just about Tsukimi and Kuranosuke. In particular, I cannot stand Mayaya, Kuranosuke's brother, or the entire side plot with the development lady. I can basically hear them screeching in my head anytime they walk onto the page. That being said, the comedy also just does not hit for me like it should. And not to mention, some of the legal jargon when it comes to any of the housing or the political stuff is just so in the weeds at times. I kind of just feel my eyes gloss over whenever I have to start reading about it. But the reason everyone still loves Princess Jellyfish is for the fashion and the characters, and I can confirm those are the best parts of Princess Jellyfish. It's just a little too all over the place for me to say that this is like one of my favorites. After Princess Jellyfish, we have Hat Atelier, which I have now read 6 volumes of. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm sure so many people are familiar with this one. This is a seinen dark fantasy series that currently has an anime coming out right now. Once again, I'm sure I'm gonna get mugged on the streets for ranking this one so low. Hat basically has she-they shooters rivaling Caleb Huron.
I've got she-theys that are shooters. So you need to be careful, because the guys from AutoZone are not doing the same for you.
But it's hardly like I dislike this series. There are just some writing choices that I'm not the biggest fan of. We'll start with what I like though, and that is the thoughtful world building and magic systems. This manga is very intricate with how it operates, with lore being built into every magic action. This is only bolstered by the stunning artistry that kind of makes panels look like they're etched into stone at times. But where I find myself not as interested in this manga is with the characterization of the main character, Kyoko. For me, Kyoko just does not feel like she's written like a kid, and kind of a lot of the other kids for that matter too. They all kind of speak like full-grown rational adults that use like logic and reasoning. When Kyoko essentially kills her mom, I would expect her to have more of an emotional outburst, to have some chapters where she really deals with that trauma, but she kind of just goes straight into her magical training arc. There's just not enough emotions from these kids, and kids are full of emotion. I also just want to quickly mention, I'm not sure if this is the story or the translation, so I don't want to pin it onto either one. I'm just gonna put it out there and you guys let me know, I guess. But when either Chiefry or any of the knights kind of speak to any other adults, it feels so wordy and kind of hard to follow. It slightly baffles me that anyone is recommending this manga to actual kids, because even I'm having a hard time fully grasping what some of these adults are saying. These are all just quibbles of my own, and I don't think they overall dampen the quality of the story or what's going on. I've enjoyed the mystery and the action in this series. I like the plots and the arcs. I just kind of find myself taking longer between volumes to actually go to my library and request the next one. But before we continue on, today's video is sponsored by Walt's Comic Shop. Are you someone living in Europe but looking for English language manga? Well, you need to check out Walt's Comic Shop. Walt's has thousands of manga currently in stock and an ever-growing inventory. They offer low shipping prices for any EU country, along with their bulletproof packaging and speedy customer support. If you enter the code Colleen's MangaRex at checkout, you'll get free shipping off your first order of 40 euros. If you're ready to start your own manga collection, then you need to check out Walt's Comic Shop, your #1 source for English language manga in Europe. Now let's get back to the video. We are now kind of getting into the territory of manga that I overwhelmingly loved and I didn't really have any complaints about. Or if I did have complaints, they were very minor and kind of just like, oh, I wish it did that. Starting with I Want to Be a Wall. This was the first manga that I read from my library because it was on my TBR for years. It was a very lovely short series about 2 queer people who decide to mutually get married because it's beneficial for the both of them. The woman, Yuriko, is asexual and the man, Gaku, is gay. So this relationship between the two is purely platonic. Like I said, this one is pretty short with 3 volumes in total, but even with only having 3 volumes, it fits so many different discussions in it about QPR, same-sex discrimination, asexual discrimination. The characters feel fully formed and like you know them even before you actually get any backstory about them. And that feeling of knowing them already really helps bring the reader into their abnormal lifestyle with relative ease. The only small thing that I wish this series did was have a little bit more discussions about lesbian relationships. It kind of hit like basically every identity on the gender and sexual spectrum, except for lesbians. So it would have just been nice to see even a small discussion about how lesbians face different discrimination than other queer people. However, I can understand it was only 3 volumes in total, and neither of the main characters would have really been able to talk about that kind of identity, so it may not have been possible to fit it in. I would highly recommend this manga either way though, and especially in this month of June. This next series is a manga that I actually started buying a couple of the physicals of and moved over to getting it from the library around volume 3, I believe. And that series is I Want to Love You Till Your Dying Day, an ongoing yuri drama, tragedy, fantasy, action series that is going to have an anime adaptation coming out very soon. It's going to be during the summer season, I think maybe July. The reason I ended up switching over to the library for this one is I read the first 2 volumes and I was like, I don't really know if I like this, but I want to support a Yuri series, so I guess I'll keep reading. I didn't hate it or anything. I just wasn't like 100% sold on the writing or the story. I actually talked about this a bit in another video when I read volume 1 of this series, that I just don't think it explains the world at all, and it kind of just throws you in and doesn't give you anything. However, after reading volumes 3 through 7 from my library, I have done a complete 180 on this one. I'm here to say you guys need to give this one a little bit of time to cook. There's a few plot twists that happen around volume 4 or so that give you a lot of context into the characters and really changes your perspective on some of the events that have happened. And once that little plot twist happens, I felt myself getting all into this manga. I do still wish that the magical war being waged in the background of this series was explained even just a little bit more. The strong suit of the series though is fully in these relationships between all these girls. There's just so many different dynamics to be explored in the confines of school breeding grounds for child soldiers. Every single time I see Kodansha says a new volume is coming out, I just can't wait for my library to get the order in. It does kind of take a little bit longer of a wait between the volumes because my library's been a little bit slow about getting new titles in lately. But honestly, this one, absolutely worth it. I will wait as long as I need to be able to continue the series. Following a Yuri manga, this next one might not be gay per se, but it was made by Satoru Noda, Mr. Homosexual Male Subtext himself. He recently started a new manga after Golden Kamui wrapped up called Dogsred, which is about ice hockey. A rather unusual sport for manga, considering even in the manga, they kind of allude to the fact that ice hockey isn't very popular in Japan outside of Hokkaido. As always though, Noda just goes balls to the wall with his over-the-top characters and gags. I might be hypocritical for saying this because earlier I was ragging on 2 other series, but there's just something about the teen boy humor that Noda does that always gets a laugh out of me. I'm not sure if it's just his art makes the gags land better, or the gags are just so over the top zany that they don't feel as gross out. There is just something specifically about how Noda uses humor that is just funny. I think he's just a funny guy. That doesn't mean that this manga is purely comedy though. If you're into Golden Kamui, you would know. Noda just loves to throw all kinds of genres and tones into his writing. In Dogsred, it oscillates between those genuinely funny moments with some really good ice hockey gameplay. It's not like I haven't seen a hockey game before, so I kind of know how the game works, but I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know what certain plays are called. I don't know what a player is doing. So seeing some of these different moves and plays being explained kind of gives me a new perspective on hockey, and I'm gonna take that into the next time I watch it. I definitely don't think that this manga is going to be for everyone, because Noda does have a weird way of plotting his series. Sometimes you just don't know where he's taking something. If you are a fan of Golden Kamui or Heated Rivalry, then go ahead and check this one out too. All right, so we have now gotten to the absolute favorites, the ones that I loved. These are now in like my high ranking manga that I have read. And we're going to be starting with Magilumiere Magical Girls Inc. A super fun Shonen Jump title that is a bit of a spin of the typical magical girl, but not in like the ooh, dark and edgy way. More like in the what if magical girls were a corporate desk job type of way. I've known of this series for a while now, coming at the recommendation of my friend Lines in Motion, so when I saw it was on Libby, I picked it up right away. And man, this manga is a real treat. Firstly, I think that any currently working Gen Z or millennial is going to feel so seen by definitely the first chapter at the very least, with how atrocious the job market is. The main character, Kana, is just trying to get some entry-level job and she's interviewed at like 15 different places and people keep saying no to her. Pretty standard situation for many people. From there, Kana ends up getting brought into this kind of like startup magical girl company and has to adjust to this new environment that she's in. But I think what's really, really interesting about this manga is how it handles the magical girl powers. It's done in a way that I've literally never seen before. It's basically just a bunch of tech gizmos as their brooms, as their power-ups, as their transformations. Imagine a world in which Silicon Valley made a bunch of magical girls a thing instead of giving us crippling technocracy. This is just such an interesting take on magic and the magical girl, and I think it really brings it down to earth. I definitely would not like that kind of premise to be like throughout all magical girl media, because I do like when it's just the typical magical powers. But when it's one about workforce troubles, then I think it's just a really great parallel. I am only 5 volumes into Magilumiere though, and I just cannot wait to get to the next volume. This one has been one of my absolute favorites that I've been reading lately. This next manga I started came as a bit of a surprise to me because I actually didn't like the first series that I read from this author, and this series is called Sheltering Eaves. It was around 2 years ago or so that I read Perfect World from the same author as Sheltering Eaves and got so frustrated with so many of the different plot developments and forced drama. There was a whole unnecessary love triangle that got shoehorned into that one. It just pissed me off. With Sheltering Eaves though, I feel like we've mostly avoided any of those shoehorned kind of like drama moments and really stuck with the core premise. This manga is an ongoing josei romance drama that has some pretty heavy topics about foster care, familial trauma, and codependency. And each of these topics have been really handled well by the author with lots of research behind them. If there's one thing that I will always give this author her flowers on is how much research she puts behind her manga. It really shows in how she develops her plots and how she has her characters lashing out. Rarely does it seem like any of their actions are done just for melodrama in this one. It really does seem like troubled kids not having any sort of outlet and just doing some of the worst things because that's all they know. They are all just like really realistic consequences of difficult upbringing. There's really just several moments in this manga that your heart is just sinking and you wish you could just help these kids like the social workers do. And that really kind of ties thematically into the story. There's all these people around that wish they could help, but just the government cannot allow them to. I will say this one, it does have some corny moments. There is like a whole character who's an underground rapper, so you kind of get some like cringy lyrics whenever he shows up. Other than that, I think this is a very important manga. I think so many people should read this one because in a time where we're failing our children, we should learn how to not do that. After a story about absent parents, we get to a manga that's about a good parent who is always there for their kid. I think Our Son is Gay. A very endearing slice of life series about a mom who, as the title suggests, thinks her son is gay. I don't always enjoy queer series when they are actually not from the perspective of the queer character themselves, but I think in the case of this manga, it's definitely for parents who need to learn to accept that their child might be queer and how to handle that. The mom obviously still loves her kid. She just isn't sure how to approach the topic of sexuality or if she should even talk to him about it. This series really deals with how the older generation needs to learn and accept the ever-evolving identities of those younger than them, and how to do this in a respectful way while still being able to ask questions. That also means we get to see an older gay man who helps out the mom whenever she wants to ask something about her possible son's sexuality, as well as showing how ignorance from other older men, in this case the dad, will only serve to push their kids further into a corner and make them uncomfortable. I Think Our Son is Gay is written by an openly gay man who has since come out to his mom as well, and I think that is why this manga is just done so nicely. There can be a world in which queer kids are able to open up to their parents and they can have a dialogue with each other. This one, just another great read during Pride if you guys want to check it out as well. It's very short, only 5 volumes in total, and the chapters are very short too. I would say this one is especially a recommendation to any parents out there. Everyone knows that I love old lady stories. And everyone also knows that we do not get enough of them licensed in English, which is why I loved BL Metamorphosis so much. Another short 5-volume slice of life title about an older lady who discovers the world of BL and an awkward teen fujoshi who is trying to find her place in the world. I think what struck me most about this series is its sincere engagement with fandom at any age while being very quiet at the same time. Our old lady main character, Ishinoi, goes to Comiket at one point, and she's very excited and interested in being there, but she just cannot keep up with the young and fast pace of Urara. This is a moment in the manga where the age gap between the two is seen as a detriment to their friendship. However, it doesn't end up with Urara being like outwardly upset with her. She simply stews in this discomfort and unsureness before they end up ending the day overall in a positive note. It's a kind of quietness you could definitely see an awkward teen doing, just like kind of stewing and being mad but not really telling anyone about it. And especially when it comes to an experience like taking someone who's new to a fandom thing when you are like in it already. It's just a very big age gap. It's a interest gap. While they do kind of have this gap, the friendship is also never like made fun of or made to seem like it's weird. It's just an old lady and a teenager who are friends with each other. Sure, it does start off a bit awkward, especially from Urara's point of view because she's a teenager, but their love of BL conquers all. Lately, you see a lot of people online calling women hags for being over 30 and being in fandom and still enjoying manga or anything like that, and saying they need to go get married and have babies, get a job, whatever the fuck. So this series in particular during this period of time is pretty much a breath of fresh air. There is no time limit on loving art, and especially not on enjoying your hobbies. Once again, never let anyone tell you that I hate shonen titles, because I have a Shonen Jump series and my number 4 favorite reads from the library, and that is Ruri Dragon. This is an ongoing slice of life coming of age series that actually just came off hiatus semi-recently, so there are only 3 volumes out in English at the moment. In those 3 volumes though is such an incredibly good parallel of the growing pains of puberty and xenophobia. Our main character Ruri suddenly wakes up one day with dragon horns and dragon powers because her mom never told her that she's half dragon. While everyone in her class is mostly enamored with Ruri's dragon powers, there are obviously those around the school who are very wary of what she can now do. This manga is just so incredibly charming though. Ruri as a character is very shy but aloof and mostly just sticks to one friend that she has and really doesn't talk to anyone else. However, her outward physical appearance has now pushed her into situations that she probably would have avoided previously, which all just helps her come out of her shell as a high schooler. There's one particular moment that I absolutely loved where Ruri was able to work up the courage to ask some other girls to go hang out with her and have a study session after school. You could really just see someone being comfortable in their skin for the first time, accepting others and them accepting you. I have loved every single volume I've read of this series, and it's been a while since I've been so so hyped up for a Jump title. I cannot wait for the anime to come out for Ruri Dragon next year because I am just a full-on Ruri fan now. Getting to the top 3, I have taken full advantage of my library when it comes to reading all the translated works of Moto Hagio. Most of her series are printed in hardcover collection formats, and I just cannot afford buying all of those. The only one I own from her is Poklan, and they were $11. So the library having basically all of her printed works available has been so helpful. The first one I checked out from her was Drunken Dreams, which is a one-shot collection. Then I saw they had another series called Otherworld Barbara, which I haven't really seen anyone talk about, so I figured I should check that one out next. Like many of Hagio's works, Otherworld Barbara is a science fiction drama series that is both creepy and psychedelic in nature. It is also probably now my favorite Hagio work of the other 5 that I have read so far. Unlike Hagio's other English translated sci-fi story, They Were 11, this series actually has an overarching narrative and a story going on. I feel like her other series I've read so far have just kind of been like episodic. So this is her first work that I feel like I've really got to sit down and learn about all these different characters and have this overarching mystery that isn't just one chapter long. From the first chapter alone, it just throws you into the deep end of this world with these superpowers. There's discrimination, there's a war going on. It really just doesn't care to give you any sort of context as to what's happening. Quickly though, it yanks you right back out of that deep end. This unfolds an entirely new layer that kind of makes you sit there and go, wait, is this a new story? Am I just reading another one-shot collection? It's not until all of the mysteries have been revealed and you start piecing together all the little bits of the puzzle that you really start to understand what this manga is about. Generational trauma and the nuclear family, 2 of Moto Hagio's favorite things. How when left untended, the wounds from our parents, our grandparents, and their parents too, will end up festering. This one is only 4 volumes long, and I would highly recommend you guys check this one out. I really didn't want to give too much of what the plot is for this one because I think it's so much better if you go in knowing absolutely nothing. If your library doesn't have it, don't hesitate to ask your librarian to fill out a request form. It's absolutely worth it, I promise you. After putting Witch Hat so low on this list, I hope I can bring back a couple of you by saying that my second favorite read from the library was Delicious in Dungeon. I doubt that I really have to say what this manga is because it has become an anime phenomenon at this point. For those who don't know about it, this one is a completed fantasy adventure series following a group of explorers who are trying to get back the mage who was eaten by a dragon. While this series could focus more on like the action and the battle sequences between the monsters, it instead brings us into this world through communal eating scenes. We get to know this merry band of misfits through the cooking process rather than their fighting style. The way each of them reacts to the monster food shows so much in their different backgrounds, their privileges, or just their interests in general. It's a really interesting and fun way to frame character interactions and human relationships. After a while, you do end up moving past the more comedic slice of life moments into something more mysterious and sinister. That doesn't mean that the series does a complete tone shift. It just starts to question its core cast a bit more as you feel like you've gotten to know them. It brings their possible motives and pasts into the forefront and kind of says like, hey, so what's that all about? Which for me is the best part of any kind of story, the complexities in relationships. I've read 7 volumes of this manga so far and I am completely enamored with the entire cast of characters. I love all of these little dummies. For anyone who only watched the anime for this one, I highly recommend you check out the manga too. Absolutely worth it. This one is phenomenal and just gives you so much more depth and context into these characters in the manga format too. And last but certainly not least, the best manga that I have been reading from the library is actually a sleeper series. I have barely seen anyone hyping up this manga or even saying that they've been reading it, and that manga is called The Color of the End. A visually stunning slice of life sci-fi series about a young girl who survived the apocalypse and is now on a mission to find remaining humans. It's a genre of story I'm sure many of you are familiar with by this point, using the backdrop of tattered buildings, debris, and overgrown flora to evoke a feeling of serenity while also making you feel existential too. What does it mean to be human? Are we still human if no other humans are around? How will we as a species be viewed in 10, 100, 1,000 years' time? All of these questions are asked throughout our main character Saya's journey through a desolate Japan, all captured beautifully in the artwork that just barely shows you the death and destruction that lies underneath the calm exterior. Skeletons strewn across pavement with the monsters who have caused it being pierced by spears. It lies in these very shadowy corners of the manga, which I think actually look better if you see them online rather than in the physical printing. It's a little dull in the printing, and I would say that is my only issue with this series. I wish the printing was a little more contrasted. The mystery set towards the end of volume 1 leaves you on the edge of your seat. You're feeling satisfied with what you read so far, but that last little bit, you just want more already. The Color of the End is really just an incredible manga that I think deserves so much hype because it is literally one of my favorite ongoing series now that isn't a shoujo. Please run to your libraries right now to go check this one out. I promise you it's absolutely worth it. I cannot wait for volume 4 to come out. Even with a list of 18 manga, I still have not given you guys all of the series that I have been reading from my library. I didn't add in this video how I read the entirety of Sailor Moon and My Androgynous Boyfriend, how I started Black Rose Alice and I Cannot Reach You. I've read completed 1-volume series like Is Love the Answer, and I've been able to continue reading manga like This Monster Wants to Eat Me. The library has truly saved my wallet while offering so many more series for me to sink my teeth into. I've found so many new manga that I haven't even heard of, and hey, even if I didn't like it, I got it for free, so I can always just give it right back. So, like I have been saying this whole time, please go check out your local libraries, guys. If we do not support these institutions, we will be losing free access to a wealth of information, literature, and entertainment. Libraries are one of the most essential and necessary foundations in our government, and it needs to not just be protected, but also used. Don't be scared to walk into one. The people there are happy to help you. And you know what? They cannot wait to sign you up for a library card. It literally takes you like 2 minutes. I was in and out of there in no time. And in those 2 minutes, you have so many new manga that you can read for free. I promise you guys, it'll be absolutely worth it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go return some library books. Oh shit, did you guys get lost in here?
Yeah, we've been here so long now, Mr. Ratburn had to have his gay rat wedding in the back rooms.
Aw, so happy for you guys. Happy Pride Month.